Welcome back to Royal Vault UK, where we uncover the hidden stories, rivalries, and untold secrets of the British royal family. Today, we step quietly into a private corner of the House of York, a branch of the monarchy often seen in photographs, seldom heard in its own voice. Our story begins with a question whispered behind closed doors. What if a daughter kept a careful record of the days when her family became a headline? A record that did not chase scandal, but tried to make sense of it. Princess Beatrice, the dutiful elder sister, the discreet daughter, has long been the quiet constant of her parents' turbulent season. According to palace observers and those close to the royal household, a personal diary attributed to Beatrice may exist, a private chronicle of emotion and duty as the York family navigated public storms and private reckonings. Today, we explore what such a diary could reveal about the York family scandal, not to sensationalize, but to understand. Behind the gilded doors of Buckingham Palace and the red brick walls of Royal Lodge, a series of choices tested the boundaries between love and loyalty, truth and protection, image and reality. Within this tension, Beatrice appears not as a distant figure, but as a daughter measuring every word, weighing every silence. This episode does not seek a verdict. It seeks clarity. We will examine how a hidden record, if it exists, might illuminate the pressures faced by Princess Beatrice and her sister, how a mother's resilience shaped the tone of a household, and how the institution navigated months of scrutiny that few families could withstand. Inside the stillness of a private page, we will look for the moments that changed the Yorks, and perhaps, in small but enduring ways, the monarchy itself. If you are ready, we will begin with the background that gave this story its shape. Would you like me to continue to the background and context section? To understand the meaning behind Princess Beatrice's hidden diary, we must first return to the early years of the York family, a story that began with promise, glamour, and a very public love. When Prince Andrew married Sarah Ferguson in the late 1980s, Britain saw a couple full of laughter and color. The press called them the fun royals, but as the decade faded, so did that picture. By the mid-1990s, headlines shifted from fairy tale romance to marital strain, private separations, and photographs that shook the monarchy's carefully composed image. Through those years, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie were often shielded from the storm. Raised between Windsor and the quiet fields of Berkshire, their childhood was marked by two realities: the warmth of their mother's affection and the weight of their father's controversy. When the Duke and Duchess of York divorced, both parents vowed to remain united in raising their daughters. But in the shadows of royal duty, that vow would be tested again and again. For Princess Beatrice, the years that followed became a lesson in silence. Those who knew her described her as thoughtful, deliberate, a young woman aware that every public word could echo back into the palace. She studied at Goldsmiths University, chose a private career, and rarely gave interviews. Yet behind the calm, her family's name was often drawn into renewed storms, financial questions surrounding her father, speculation about her mother's ventures, and the constant hum of palace insiders weighing how the Yorks fit into a modern monarchy. By the late 2010s, the scrutiny grew sharper. Reports surrounding the Duke of York's associations with controversial figures brought unprecedented pressure upon the family. Public institutions distanced themselves. Charities withdrew support. And inside the royal circle, difficult conversations began about titles, roles, and the boundaries of forgiveness. It was during this era, according to those who served close to the household, that Beatrice turned increasingly inward, journaling, reflecting, seeking to preserve the difference between private truth and public narrative. Her mother, Sarah Ferguson, remained fiercely protective, reminding both daughters that reputation can be rebuilt only through honesty and endurance. "You must hold your head high," she once told them, "but never forget who you are when the cameras are gone." That sentiment, repeated in interviews, would become a quiet theme in Beatrice's life, the conflict between loyalty to family and the public's demand for accountability. As the story of the Yorks continued to unfold, palace aides began to describe Beatrice as a bridge between two worlds, the emotional family she loved and the institution she was born into. If her diary exists, it may not be a collection of secrets, but a record of this delicate balance, a daughter trying to hold together what the headlines kept pulling apart. The stage is now set. Behind the polished smiles and royal courtyards, the York family faced a reckoning that would test the strength of every bond they held dear. The story that emerged from Princess Beatrice's alleged diary is not one of scandal in its purest sense, but of quiet pain of how love, loyalty, and duty collided in a family forced to live under a relentless spotlight. According to palace sources cited in later years, the diary began as an act of preservation. Beatrice reportedly started writing during the most turbulent months of 2019, when her father, Prince Andrew, faced public scrutiny over his association with Jeffrey Epstein. It was a year that would alter the York family forever. Inside Buckingham Palace, aides described a mood of uncertainty. Meetings were held in hushed tones. The Queen, then in her 90s, was said to be deeply concerned not only for her son's reputation but for the emotional toll on her granddaughters. The family must stay united, she was reported to have said. Yet unity, as Beatrice's reflections hinted, came at a cost. In one passage, later paraphrased by a close family friend, Beatrice wrote of the sound of silence in the house when the phone stops ringing. The image captures more than sadness. It reveals isolation, the moment when public admiration turns into avoidance. As charity severed ties and royal duties were suspended, Beatrice and Eugenie were left to navigate a new reality. Their father was still a prince, but no longer a working royal. Behind closed doors, tension grew between the palace's desire to protect the institution and the daughter's instinct to protect their father. Beatrice reportedly attended several private meetings at Windsor, urging advisors to handle the matter with dignity and care. Yet she also understood that denial would only deepen the wound. In one section described by insiders, she wrote, "Sometimes love must be quiet, not because it hides the truth, but because it waits for time to soften it." It is a sentence that seems less like defense and more like surrender, a daughter accepting that the monarchy she cherishes could not carry her father's burden without consequence. The conflict did not stop there. When Prince Andrew's infamous television interview aired, Beatrice's name surfaced again not as a participant, but as someone who had urged caution. Reports later suggested that she attended one of the preparatory meetings and expressed doubts. "Perhaps," she is said to have written, "some truths are not ready to be spoken aloud." The aftermath of that interview sent shockwaves through the royal family. Within days, the Duke of York stepped back from public duties for the foreseeable future. The tone inside the York household changed. What had been whispered now echoed in every room. The family was officially out of favor. Beatrice's diary reportedly captures that transformation in vivid emotional detail, the shift from titles and invitations to a quieter life defined by resilience. She writes of her mother's unwavering optimism, of Eugenie's gentle defiance, and of her own determination to maintain a sense of grace amid the storm. One line, read by a confidant, simply states, "Our story is not disgrace, it is endurance." For the royal family, those months tested more than protocol, they tested humanity. And in the heart of that storm stood Beatrice, pen in hand, documenting the unraveling of privilege into humility. As whispers of the diary's existence began circulating among royal observers, questions followed. Did Beatrice intend for it ever to be read? Was it a daughter's confession, a chronicle of a family's reckoning, or a plea for understanding? Whatever the truth, the echoes of her words suggest something rare in royal history. An honest reflection on what happens when duty demands silence and love demands speech. In the months that followed, the York family entered a chapter defined by reflection rather than defiance. Public appearances grew rarer. Statements from the palace became carefully worded, measured, and brief. Yet within those silences, transformation quietly took place. For Princess Beatrice, the act of writing, once a private refuge, became a way of processing a loss greater than reputation. The loss was of certainty, of the belief that the royal name could shield one from the world's judgment. Her diary, according to those who later spoke about its contents, reveals not resentment but awakening. She began to see that the institution she was born into could no longer function as it once had, an empire of ceremony built upon unquestioned loyalty. Her words reportedly acknowledge the tension between image and identity. "We are taught to represent, not to reveal," she wrote. "But without truth, representation becomes a costume we cannot remove." That idea, quietly radical in a royal context, speaks to a new generation within the monarchy, one that recognizes the need for transparency, emotional honesty, and a balance between tradition and humanity. Observers noticed a subtle change in Beatrice's demeanor during public events after her father's withdrawal from duties. She appeared calmer, more grounded, often accompanied by her husband Edoardo Mappelli Mazzi. When she married in a private ceremony at Windsor during the pandemic, the event felt symbolic, a return to simplicity, a gesture of dignity after years of turbulence. The Queen attended, smiling warmly, as if acknowledging that grace can sometimes be more powerful than grandeur. Within royal circles, Beatrice's discretion began earning quiet respect. A senior courtier once remarked, "She does not seek to erase her family's mistakes. She carries them, gracefully." That balance between loyalty to her father and commitment to the crown reflected a maturity that few could achieve under such scrutiny. Meanwhile, the broader institution took note. The York episode forced Buckingham Palace to confront a delicate question. How does a modern monarchy handle personal scandal without losing its moral authority? The answer, it seemed, lay not in denial, but in adaptation. The royal family began emphasizing service, accountability, and the human side of its members. Sarah Ferguson, once ostracized, found a measure of rehabilitation through charitable work and a renewed public image. Princess Eugenie became an advocate for causes related to health and women's rights, using her platform quietly but effectively. Through it all, Beatrice remained the thread of continuity, a figure of composure amid redefinition. In her diary's final pages, a passage reportedly stands out. "The crown survives not because it is perfect, but because it learns to bend without breaking." Those words echo through every royal generation, but perhaps never more so than now. Beatrice's journey reveals something profound about the British monarchy. It is not a story of downfall, but of recalibration, a family learning to exist within the modern world's unforgiving light. Her private reflections, if they are ever made public, may one day be seen not as scandalous, but as necessary a bridge between the institution's past silence and its future honesty. What began as a daughter's attempt to understand has become a quiet symbol of endurance. In the long corridors of Windsor, where portraits of ancestors gaze down upon the living, stories of the British monarchy often echo in whispers rather than declarations. The tale of Princess Beatrice's hidden diary belongs to that quieter tradition, not a revelation meant to shock, but a mirror held up to the truth of what it means to be royal and human all at once. When we look back at the York family's turbulent years, it becomes clear that survival within the royal sphere requires more than birthright. It demands grace under pressure, restraint in the face of humiliation, and an understanding that public service is not measured by applause, but by endurance. Beatrice has embodied all of these, not through grand speeches or rebellion, but through dignity and silence. If her diary truly exists, it may never be published, nor need it be. Its power lies in what it represents. A daughter's attempt to record honesty in a family built on discretion. A reminder that behind every title lies a heart that breaks and mends like any other. Through her private words, she has perhaps preserved something the monarchy desperately needs: sincerity. The York story is not over. As King Charles reshapes the monarchy for a new era and younger royals define what service means in the 21st century, Beatrice's journey stands as a quiet example. She is not the rebel nor the reformer. She is the witness, the one who remembers that the crown's endurance depends not only on ceremony, but on compassion. And perhaps, as time softens the wounds of the past, the House of York will not be remembered only for its controversies, but for its resilience, for the way its daughters faced shame with grace and turned silence into strength. In the end, the diary's final message, if such a page exists, might read like a benediction. We are more than the stories told about us. We are what we choose to remember. Thank you for watching this episode of Royal Vault UK, where we bring you the hidden truths, the quiet confessions, and the enduring legacy of Britain's royal bloodlines. If you found this story meaningful, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps keep the vault open, one secret at a time.